OTT platforms, I don't know if you watched many shows over the weekend, but there seems to be not enough shows. And what we also now know, there's not enough audience. And the audience growth in 2023, as per a report, has come down to 13% as opposed to 20% a year ago.
Not surprising again, Shweta. You know, I think again, when we look at the headline, OTT growth slows, but it is still OTT growth. It's not degrowth, right? So the simple point being that it grew 13% against the previous year's 20%, but 13% is also excellent growth. We've just seen, you know, Q2 go by.
Right.
And which company has actually, apart from Maruti Suzuki and apart from, you know, the auto big ticket companies, look at IT companies for that matter, you've hardly seen a 12%, 13% growth. If you look at, let's say, a 10-year period, the benchmark indices, Sensex and Nifty, also give you an average return of about 12%, right? But anyway, so that is just sort of, you know, putting the number in context. But the fact being that a 13% growth, a 13% growth is definitely lower growth than a 20% the previous year, but it is growth nonetheless. Now, some reasons why this could be happening, and just crystal ball gazing here. Number one, it could definitely be a function of more number of platforms available and more number of subscriptions that every individual has to take to watch multiple shows streaming across multiple platforms. So this sort of enormous growth in the number of platforms is maybe putting a dent on the consumer to actually go ahead and subscribe to multiple platforms. This is number one. Number two, again, we've seen Netflix has come down heavily against password sharing. That doesn't seem to be the case yet with most other OTT platforms operating in India, whether it is Sony Live or Disney Plus, Hotstar, Jio Cinema, etc. So password sharing is again, one of the aspects that may have resulted in this decline in the growth rate, even though it is growth at one level. Then, of course, work from home coming to an end. People spending more time, or if not more, definitely pre-pandemic amount of time outside of the comforts or discomforts of their home, arguably, and hence not watching as much content as they were watching during the pandemic. And then, of course, this large base of 20% and higher that we've seen in preceding years comes on account of this huge spurt that came into OTT only thanks to the pandemic. So I think it is more rationalization of growth. It is definitely a slower clip, but a 13% growth also I don't think spells doom yet for OTT platforms. Now, of course, on the variety of content or quality of content available out there, that's a much larger debate. But the fact is that there are enough options still available for those who want to subscribe to a platform or two and consume content. Now, the function would eventually be, the profitability function would eventually come down to how much are OTT platforms spending on acquiring or producing original content, and how much are they sort of, able to justify those large expenses of content acquisition or acquiring those huge libraries against the kind of subscription revenue that they would see, and how much of that would get diluted when people continue sharing passwords. And would that eventually then lead to a kind of consolidation like is already in the works when you look at Disney Plus, Hotstar, that business wanting to sell, and the aggression with which Jio Cinema has entered and could take on more and more libraries, if not more and more players out there. And then, of course, we are seeing this Sony Z merger finally reaching some sort of likelihood of closure. So overall, there is definitely likely to be consolidation in the OTT space. And some good mathematics and economics will have to prevail on how much would you continue spending to acquire more customers and put out more content out there versus how much people are willing to pay. That fine balance will have to be done between all remaining players.
And come to think of it, there's still room for growth because OTT penetration in India is just under 35%, which essentially means that there are more and more audiences that need to be acquired and need to be reached out to in different geographies.
Right. So again, I think, if you look at this number of about 35% or so, these are 35% of mobile subscribers in India. But, I think you would have definitely a family of 3, for example, sharing one single subscription. So that way, I think the number is good enough already. I think now the battle is going to be more about taking away somebody else's subscriber and getting him to subscribe on your platform, as opposed to the whole market continuing to grow.
All right. So competition, of course, heating up in OTT space as more and more consolidation is in pipeline. But moving away to a story that has come in since yesterday and continues to dominate headlines, and that is betting apps. As many as 22 of them, including Mahadev, are now banned by the government. What does it really mean for people who were betting and for these apps that were in fact in operation for a while now, for years and years, and did not fall under any government scrutiny?
So Mahadev app has been banned, Shweta, primarily on account of ED alleging PMLA, which is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So it seems that Mahadev app, which was registered in UAE, has been involved in some sort of money laundering activities outside India. So Indian money, which is being put into the betting platform, is being taken away outside of India, and perhaps that has resulted in Mahadev app specifically being banned. Now Mahadev app, if you remember, has also been in some sort of a controversy along with allegations wherein there were some reports that suggested that Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel had perhaps taken upwards of 500 crore rupees from the promoters of Mahadev app. Now that investigation has been on for the last 1.5 years, and MeitY suggesting over there, and MOS for IT Rajiv Chandrasekhar suggesting that perhaps the Chhattisgarh government itself should have proactively over the course of the last 1.5 years taken enough steps to put an end to this app, ban the app on their own accord. Now, are the remaining 21 apps, remember a total of 22 apps have been banned, are the remaining 21 apps also involved in money laundering? Is that the allegation against them? I don't know as yet. Add to that, I think, you also need to look at this whole online betting versus game of skill sort of a debate, and betting still being a bad word in India, and the fact that if the end goal of any application, any gaming application out there is to make you take a punt and get a financial reward, that again is in the grey area of being banned or
so
not
we don't
being
know
banned,
whether
etc.
it's banned or not
So
banned.
Mahadev specifically, I think the report suggests that Mahadev was involved in online betting, and that is something that is not permitted because the company is also registered outside the shores of India, and hence the whole money laundering act comes into play. But the fact is that are the remaining 21 also online betting games? Are they also registered outside of India? Have they also been involved in money laundering or not? We don't know. So I think this is still going to be a developing story, and we'll see. We have seen the government ban apps in the past as well. In fact, 2020, 2021, we saw 2 tranches of Chinese apps being banned in India when there were skirmishes and little more serious sort of attacks against India by China on the border.
There's one clarity that perhaps many of our viewers would be needing, is that when Chinese apps were banned, it was clear that these apps are banned on account of data security and national agenda,
Yes.
and the security
Yes.
of the users who are using those apps. What essentially is the problem with these betting
Money
apps?
laundering. Simply,
With all 22 of them?
we don't know. So with Mahadev specifically, the problem seems to be money laundering. The problem definitely seems to be end goal of the app was to enable people to make money by putting a punt, and this organization, by virtue of being settled in or operating out of UAE and not within the shores of India, taking away all the money onto its its headquarters in UAE, and also of course there were allegations of corruption, etc., but that's a different political story. But overall, I think money laundering seems to be the primary case against these 22 apps. We know for sure Mahadev is booked under PMLA. For the remaining 21, we don't have the details.